Well, the first thing I'm always going to think of is that structure up there because it's really incredible.
We all had a purpose there. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. We could all work together.
We had actually sat outside of this and thought up our own society.
It's pretty likely in 20 years we'll have people living on the moon. They'll have to grow their own food. They'll understand the effects of low gravity. And they'll know what it means to live with too many people for weeks at a time. The people who will live on the moon are probably in school right now. I like to think I went to school with some of them. Heck, I like to think that I might be one of them. I'm Craig Bowman. During my senior year of high school, my teachers encouraged us to pursue that dream. We built our own moon colony. We called it Moonbase America. '96 of us prepared a year for Moonbase. We had a special class for 2 semesters that took a lot of time after school. If there's one thing I learned most from this class, it's that science plays a big part in everything we do. I worked with people whose jobs are in scientific fields. Many of them came with equipment their companies donated. Others just volunteered their time at the project. You know, Moonbase took on a life of its own.
We didn't go out and solicit help. People came to us. We had people driving by and say, what a neat experience. Can we help in some way? I had people from as far away as, about 30 miles that would drive in here of an evening with their kids, and they saw what a neat project it was and decided they wanted to help too. So they buckled down and brought the whole family and participated, helped us erect the domes.
The domes were our homes for 7 days. We spent a lot of nights after school putting them together. When we were done, we were pretty impressed. Judging by the turnout, so was the community. 5,000 people showed up for a tour the night before the mission began.
It's neat to think that, high school kids put this together. There were professionals helping us, but they weren't hired to come in and do that job for us. We were up there. I was up there on that ladder doing, caulking and painting and hammering. And so we made that structure.
This was a real unique situation where we had the opportunity to come up with an intriguing structure, something that would be different.
Goals that we have, a lot of times are written goals, and this was a visual goal.
There was a group of 11 of us, I think, that had given all of our free time to building the domes. We'd lift the pieces up and everything. It was a bolt-together kind of thing.
Well, the kids did a phenomenal amount of work. The kids and myself really put together the majority of the system, along with some help from parents, and a lot of community members assisted too.
You need a very willing and excitable community, and I think that is Copley.
It brought together students, teachers, community people, as well as corporate executives, helping us fund it, as well as with much of the technical advice that needed to be done to complete the project.
Companies from all over backed us up. They donated our computer network, our telephone system, our scientific testing instruments, and a robot arm. Grants covered the materials for the 9 domes. This is the main dome. All the crew meetings took place here. The medical crew and our research specialists had their lab here, and since this was a co-ed project, 2 separate sleeping areas. These 3 domes house the kitchen area, the recreation area, and the air and water control. While in these 3 domes, we had a lunar mining facility for food, fish tanks, and a hydroponics greenhouse. One team specialized in growing food. Moonbase was meant to be self-sustaining. We grew vegetables in artificial sunlight, and we also raised fish.
Well, there are African fish that they were supposed to grow very fast. We were using the tilapia and the hydroponics as they really made up the self-contained part of Moonbase. If you're on the moon, you couldn't go to the grocery market down the street and get it, and we were in charge of growing the food for the people.
We wanted them to successfully be able to take these fingerling fish and to grow them and to have a self-sustained ecosystem in those fish tanks. And we wanted to obviously to be able to produce food at the end. We fortunately were able to produce the food. It was smaller than obviously we wanted it to be, but you know, those are things that happen in scientific experiments.
Only 2 days into Moonbase, at 2 o'clock in the morning, we had our first serious problem. A fungus was threatening our food supply.
Well, we had a few troubles with them. In the Moonbase, we noticed that a fish was swimming weirdly, and we took it out and noticed that a fungus growing on it. So we had to contaminate that tank, but otherwise, it went pretty smoothly. With teamwork, we figured it out what type of fungus it was and how to treat it, but we ended up contaminating the whole tank and separating it from the rest of the fish.
The fish hatchery crew saved the fish supply. The other homegrown products grew in the dome next door. All the food came together 3 times a day for 3 different shifts.
Initially, we thought that if we had all the equipment necessary, we could really raise all the vegetables that were needed inside. If you don't have plants that are under the right conditions from the beginning, you can't bear fruit, on a certain time period. We were able to produce peas and beans and cucumbers and some tomatoes. So we tried to supplement the diet. Our role kind of changed from being the primary food source to a supplemental food source inside of the pods.
Food was good. Food kids had a lot to do. Where rec kids didn't have much to do. Food kids were always busy. Every time I turned on the TV, somebody had a big sharp knife and was chopping something up.
The biggest challenge, washing the dishes. That was a challenge because there were a lot of people eating and we had to keep washing dishes to make sure we had enough for everybody. But it was also hard getting a schedule because we had to have everything cooked on time because it had to be hot for them to eat.
They had a lot of cleaning to do, they had a lot of planning to do.
And I think that was probably the hardest thing, was planning everything. To cook for 84 people, we had to learn to cook in large quantities. The biggest mistake that we made was not being careful enough, really. There was one time when we burned the rice because we forgot to turn it down. And there was one time when the brownies burned a little bit too long, and there were times when things were left frozen longer than they should have, so it took them longer to cook. We just weren't quite as careful as we should have been. It's not to say that we weren't cautious and that we weren't watching what we were doing, but it was easy to make mistakes.
They found out that they didn't like peeling potatoes, that they didn't like doing dishes, that it was a very monotonous job, and that people weren't very grateful for all the hard work that they did. I remember reading one of the sets of log sheets, and it said that when you left your shift, you always left a mess for the next shift. It was like they turned it sort of into a ritual where you messed it up, and then when you came in, you knew you had a mess to deal with, and then you had your food to get ready. And then when you left, you just sort of left everything for the next shift. So they kind of made it into a fun thing.
During the entire week of the Moonbase mission, not one student had a serious health problem. But it didn't stop our medical crew from preparing for the worst.
Well, we had to expect the worst. I was really nervous going in there, thinking, well, what if somebody has a heart attack and I can't care for them? It's my fault.
taken any medication since your left?
They were really well prepared. They did a lot of different things. They got their first aid certificates. They had talked about claustrophobia, about depression. They had made sure that they knew what special circumstances different people had, like allergies, and some other people who were on some special medications, and they had records of all that.
I've always planned on going into medicine. There really hasn't been anything else that I would rather be than a doctor. So being a medical officer, I guess it gives me a jump start on working with people and knowing CPR and first aid, which are basic medical techniques.
And it wasn't just that if somebody got cut or fell down or something like that, but they also had to, they were also the watch guard to see that everybody was, you know, getting enough sleep, and they were relaxed, and, you know, they weren't irritating each other. So they were the ones that were supposed to kind of sit back and kind of watch what was happening, the interactions too.
We got to explore physical aspects of exercise and general physical medicine, no chemical medicine. When we went in, I was really scared that I was going to do something wrong, but I guess we handled ourselves okay.
While we were tackling the day-to-day challenges and doing our research missions, we still had to keep up with our earthbound class assignments. We had education specialists in the Moonbase who helped.
Okay, what are you guys working on?
We're working on
Through our computer and telephone networks, as well as the all-important facts, we managed to stay up to date. Well, pretty much up to date.
They were working with incubating agar strips. They were trained to do this during the first half of Moonbase in the classroom. But they had to learn to read those and to interpret those and to regulate the incubators, to take the air samples to make certain that no bacteria were growing that were foreign, you know, to the inside of our colony, and also to take care if actually the bacteria started to grow, to take care and to minimize the growth of the bacteria. They also did water tests on the fish tanks to make certain that things were good there, and maintained as sterile as environment as we could, as it went with the water and the air anyhow.
During training, we simulated the moon's gravity by learning scuba. Once we got used to the hostile environment, we tackled the difficulties of handling tools. When Peter, Ricky, and Carol Steichen simulated a moonwalk, they didn't have to worry about a lack of air being struck by meteorites. But the research crew did have a share of problems to overcome.
The design of the outfits were made so that equipment could be placed on the outfits themselves. We allowed the students to help in the design and also the sewing of the external walk uniform, so we were able to use other students outside of research. We learned from the last project to this project that the external walk, even though it was a large portion of the project because of the experimental value, it wasn't workable. It wasn't workable because the students themselves couldn't function inside the suits. So we had talked locally to universities, and they suggested we talk with Cornell. And because of a local company here, BF Goodrich Aerospace, they sent students to Cornell and Cornell students down to us. And the project changed the whole research aspect of the external walk.
Peter, let's do a radio check. Rich, you still there? KBKGC.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Oh, it looks like it's pouring out there, right?
It never rains on the moon, but it rained all during that week.
wet. You can do that experiment last, and we'll get you a battery.
They were measuring the speed of light. We used a Loran C from a local company and gridded the land around the Moonbase structure.
Hello, Peter from Command Center.
We also had two types of telescopes, a radio telescope that we used, and we always set up problems for the students, and we exchanged antenna just before so that they were working with 1/3 the size, so they had to make adjustments on that, and it was frustrating for them. Very similar to what you would see in a real situation.
The contents in the rover has to... Okay. I didn't copy.
An important part of the moonwalk was relaying findings and problems back to the main dome and the command center. First it rained, then the radios quit.
Take this off and put it there. You gotta pull out these. Never mind. Put on... Give me a small screwdriver. There's a pin inside that just goes right in. I'll make it longer, yeah. Fun yet?
Everyone came to expect the unexpected. The day-to-day problems challenged us, but in a way they held us together. When the rain forced us to cancel a few moonwalks, it found its way into Moonbase. The security and maintenance crew worked round the clock for the first 3 days tackling rain-related problems.
Well, during the week it leaked a little bit.
We had rain, and lots of rain. It rained 24 hours a day, nearly the whole time. And unfortunately, we had a few roof leaks, and the kids had to take care of this problem.
You know, we caulked them, but it was going to happen with wood on wood put together. It's just going to leak. The water was coming through the wood, really.
The neat thing about this group in maintenance, they met every problem head on and solved every one of them on their own with the forethought of bringing tools in and being able to maintain everything. It was really a neat experience.
You know, I had given it my best, and if something didn't go right, you know, I knew it was my fault, and I had a better idea how to fix it because I put it together to begin with.
Maintenance did a great job keeping the structure together. They also watched over our moon rock, a real moon rock. NASA let us borrow it, but only under special conditions. We needed a safe, but the security and maintenance crew provided the guard.
Everything is disarmed. You can take it from here.
Since we only had enough beds for 1/3 of the crew, we had to sleep in shifts. Here's where we had to understand more than just lunar geology and geography. We had to handle a colony of our own design. This small collection of people formed something much bigger.
But it was really fascinating to see the Moonbase culture develop because it was unlike any culture I had ever seen before. We had actually sat outside of this and thought up our own society to meet certain criteria. That very rarely actually happens.
They, as students, can decide what in the future their society will be. It's not easy for a student to spend 7 days with 95 other students and keep order, create a government, debate over different issues, look at when they have to be at a certain location and be there without adults inside. And that happened. And I think they're going to carry that discipline and that responsibility with them.
Lots of conflict. That's one thing that was a major factor in our society, as in any society. In government, I know there was one person who tended to dominate.
I think establishing ourselves is a big thing, simply because we didn't know really where our governmental power, if you can say, came from. We were more chosen. We weren't picked by a mandate from the masses. We were just told that we're the government. So we had to go in there and make everybody believe in us.
We tried to unite everybody, the groups, into bigger groups, so they could work together. And then we drafted a constitution, and the government officers kind of clashed with the command controllers on that. And so jointly, we wrote one, and then we ended up joining command controllers and government officers into one large body.
Well, we need to work together, but we need to watch each other's feelings as well. We can't just push those off aside just because we didn't get sleep, because that's not their fault that we didn't get sleep. It's your own fault. So you got to learn not to be as touchy and be calm and still polite to them, because they're a part of the project as well.
I think too many times they went undiscussed and untreated. But I remember one time, to resolve a conflict between the research department and one of its specialists, we had a government moderator come in, and we both presented our sides to him in an organized, informal argument, and then he decided on the outcome, which I think was one of our most successful ones, because he was unrelated to the specialist area. He could make an objective decision there.
I think everybody got along really well. There were a few disputes, little arguments, but nothing that couldn't be settled just by talking things out. That's what I learned most, just seeing that maybe people can get along.
The research specialists were also in charge of the mining dome.
We controlled it remotely inside the main dome at the research station, the remote control console to which it was wired. And this console also had 2 television sets mounted into it, from which we could see the robot's movements.
We had a pod inside specifically for mining, and we had seeded it with anorthosite rocks that contained titanium, and the students were to take that, pulverize it, and use it in a flotation mining device.
After we had removed the rocks from the dome, we took them to our station and performed flotation mining on them. Flotation mining is basically the process which can be used to analyze the mineral's content.
Most of Moonbase was concentrated within the walls of our 9 domes, but 17 other schools throughout the United States also took part. Some of our research specialists communicated with other sites by telephone. They kept in touch with us through our daily satellite teleconference.
Hi, this is Craig Bowman. Welcome back to Moonbase America here at Copley, Ohio. We're into day 3 of the simulation here in Ohio, and, things have been really eventful.
Behind me, you can see the main amateur radio station of Moonbase America, which has 4 forms of communications. We have satellite communication, amateur television, and many various radios with which you can communicate all around the world with.
And by the end of the week, we'll see if there is a major difference of the fish living in light or dark environments.
In waste management, what we do is we decompose all the organic materials that are left over from the kitchen. Over here, we have a worm farm which contains 1,500 worms, which are mixed in with mulched leaves and peat. And what they're used for is to decompose coffee grounds, light stuff like ground up orange rinds and apple cores.
With us now inside the main dome are my twin brother, Andy Bowman, Kevin O'Brien,
and Brian Spurlock.
To talk to you about the domes, we had several options for Moonbase, and we chose the Geodesic Dome mostly because it looks cool, but really because of the thermodynamics and the heat inside, that it was more efficient as far as air transfer and stuff.
Has there been any problems with the leakage inside Moonbase?
The girls' dorm had a problem, a couple of seams that, not at the very top, but as the triangles are bolted together towards the bottom, the rainwater, as it drains down the seams, tends to work its way in as it gets closer to the bottom.
Moonbase is a lot more to go here, and I'd like to thank you all for tuning in on us. Seeing a clip now of the opening ceremony of a song that was a theme song written by one of the teachers from Moonbase. Thank you from Moonbase America. I'm Craig Bowman.
It just blossomed, and everyone became important, and everyone had a role, and everyone became excited about the possibilities.
Well, I've finally really found a field that I'm really interested in. I mean, before Moonbase, I was kind of wondering what I'm going to do with my life.
They saw it firsthand.
Every day was something different and exciting and unique.
It gave me a broader background on science.
They saw all the problems. They saw all the pluses.
Because the project varied from 8th grade to 12th grade, and I believe all those grades got together and were actually able to work together.
I think if people have an opportunity to see, you know, Mom and Dad are there for a reason, you know, and I'm not capable of doing everything by myself. I need people to help me too. And that's a limitation that everyone should be aware of.
And they also formed their own society, and they were working together to achieve their goals. It's important to show hands-on science in a real situation. That's Moonbase.
What's next? Well, the facility will continue its mission, making science and the world more understandable. Then there's its future impact on every participant. Many of us, like myself, didn't know what we wanted to do after high school, but the Moonbase experience showed us how our school subjects fit together. It also introduced us to professionals from every field, including science. I guess that's why I'm in college now, studying engineering. But there's still so much beyond college. In 20 years, I hope you'll be visiting me at my new home, just 250,000 miles away.